God is the life in you and me. My dog was actually wild. She's a 9-month-old puppy, and my neighbors were putting in grass. Well, you know what goes under grass is some manure. So I was walking with my neighbor last night, and she says, "Do you know that black and white dog? She just came over and she was like having a good time, rolling on her back, just having the best time in the whole world." And just noticing how sometimes we get to roll in whatever that is. We get to roll, either roll with it, or sometimes we roll in it. And so as I was talking with my neighbor, fortunately they're putting the grass in and it's green side up. They're remembering to put the green side up, not just the dirt up. But I was walking with her and she says, "You know, I've been there too. I've rolled in some certain things and I've got some on me sometimes." And so today we get to take a look at a new way of fasting, and a new way of fasting from negative thoughts, negative people, negative experiences. And oftentimes that starts with me. So I get to fast from whatever those unempowering or disempowering thoughts are. That starts with me. And I get to also focus on the way that I'm being in the world and what I'm up to. Because here at this center, we're up to something wonderful. And we take that with us to be the girl on the streets. And we take that with us. So I know that we're in this practice of 21 days of taking two. Take 2 minutes. Take 20 minutes. It could be 3 times a day. It could be for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And for about 21 days, we can be conscious and ask, what am I thinking and what am I feeling? Or what am I feeling and what do I need? What am I feeling and what do I need? And to do that for about 2 minutes. And sometimes we just get to be with you. I get to be with myself. Not with myself and another person. Not with myself and the cell phone. Not with myself being on the freeway. Sometimes I'll notice myself making phone calls in between things, and, what am I really conscious on? And so really to just be with ourselves and notice what is empowering or what is disempowering. What am I thinking? And what do I need? Or what am I feeling and what do I need? And we're in a month of also patience. And what I know is from reading Allan Lokos' book, Patience, the Art of Peaceful Living, is that wisdom evolves through seeing things as they are. And patience evolves through accepting things as they are. That song, "I Can See Clearly Now." And to wake up, sometimes not even getting out of the wrong side of the bed. If we get out of that right side of the bed, we can see clearly now. Wisdom evolves from seeing things as they are, seeing clearly, and being pulled by a vision rather than pushed by pain. So, and oftentimes, pain pushes until the vision pulls. And sometimes if I find that a situation is unacceptable and I can do something about it if I can do something about it to change it, I do so. And if I can't transform it, it's wise to accept it. And it enlarges my view. I have a clearer view. So we're in a year of the power of spiritual living and spiritual practices. And so we can stop throughout the day, taking 2 minutes, taking two times a day, 2 minutes, 20 minutes, and say, what am I feeling and what do I need? And it was Raymond Charles Barker. He was a big speaker for about 35 years at Lincoln Center. Raymond Charles Barker, prolific author, and he wrote a book on how to change other people. And it was a bestseller for a while. Really, it was an immediate bestseller, and people just grabbed it up. And then after they grabbed it up, they realized that it was really about changing oneself. And then it fell off the bestsellers list. It went out of print because nobody wanted it. And very few people, sometimes we don't get on a deep and profound level that the best way to transform the world is to transform ourselves, to transform the way that we move through the world. So, and when we transform the way that we move through the world responds, and it acts accordingly. It corresponds, it acts as we respond to whatever those conditions or circumstances are. And so in essence, we can be more in our life, in essence on the court. A friend of mine plays tennis, and so she's on the court of her life. She's in the game, this thing Florence Shovelshin calls the game of life. Rather than being in the stands, calling out the shots, looking from afar. Some of us may look from afar for certain things. Being in the bleachers, just looking at whatever that is, rather than being in it, in on the court. So some of us may be on the stands. We may be in the bleachers. We may be removed, and it may be time to be on the court. So are we actually in that field like a tennis game? Are we actually on the court? Are we actually coming out of those bleachers? Or are we just yelling like the way that it should be? Yelling from the bleachers and telling whatever the sports figures are. How are we living our life? Are we living our life in full court, in the fullness of it? And it could be that we do get some stuff on us, like we're rolling in whatever we're rolling in. It could be that we get a little bit of dust that we get to brush off. And if it's not the way we want it to be, we get to transform it. And if we can't transform it, we get to accept it. So patience evolves from acceptance. And we're in a month of saying no to what's not workable, what doesn't work, and then in October we'll be in a month of saying yes. Because it's not enough to just fast from junk food to be healthy, right? Even though we do like chocolate and we like to talk about dessert here. It's not good enough if I just fast from junk food. I get to say yes to what's healthy, and it's much like our body. Much like our body, as we're spiritually healthy, we get to look at our immune system, our spiritual immune system. So that as we go out in the world and we are in this place of empowerment, it's much like the body. And so the purpose of saying no is to say, no, that's not workable for me. And then we can also say yes. Well, what are we saying yes to? So it's not enough to have whatever that negative glue is as far as what we resist persists, because we're still kind of glued to it because our attention's over here. We might, just have that little glue that's not so super. So we might be attached to something that we want to get away from. So what are we moving toward? So the pain may push until the vision pulls. And we can't just love one thing. We're multi-dimensional beings. We can't just forgive one thing. We can't just be compassionate about one thing. Or if we do get up on the wrong side of the bed, we may want to get back in bed and get back up and get off on the right side of the bed. And so the first person that we get to say no to is perhaps ourselves, to say no to being negative to ourselves. And it could be that we try it on like a pair of shoes, we try it on like a sweater and see how it fits. And if none of this is fitting for you, come back next week, we'll have something else for you too, something else new. And sometimes we have to fast and create that space where we can see clearly, and that empty space where the vision can pull. So we can be pulled by a vision, pulled by whatever that vision is that's in our heart. And Terry spoke a little bit about visioning, and so knowing what that highest and best is and allowing that space, allowing that spiritual practice. So as we have the spiritual immune system, it's like we have antibodies, and we have a little dose. We have a little dose of whatever that thing is. And it has enough knowledge to know how to deal with something when something comes up. So that's the theory, the scientific theory behind vaccines. It gives us enough of that knowledge. Have you ever seen negative people? Are you actively engaged with negative people? Yeah? We all have some of those folks. And so there's ways to not be one of them, no matter what. No matter what, we can be in the field and on the court, on that court of life. And to see clearly now and to know that there's another way. So there's another way to not only not be one of them, but we can stay focused on how we're being and focused on whatever that task is at hand, whatever we're doing, whether it's a conversation with a loved one, whether it's being at work and having that conversation, whether it's having the most wonderful time dancing, dancing in the streets at Global Kirky. And then sometimes we get to get out of the way, too. It just may not be, sometimes I like to say that something may be for us, It may not be about us sometimes, but it may be for us. It may be for us to notice and take a look at. And there's even amoebas. Sometimes they're smarter than we are. When it's a single-cell organism, and I know we have a brain sometimes and we have a heart, but those amoebas, when something comes at it that's not good for it, it moves. It moves in a different direction. It may be pulled by something else. It may be moving out of the way. So to be spiritually healthy, we sometimes have to have just some time with ourselves. And we have a healthy immune system. We have a spiritually healthy immune system. And like our bodies that has nutrition and rest and exercise, we can't substitute nutrition for exercise or sleep. Even when we're asleep, we have different brain patterns. You know, we have this living and moving and this being that's in these dimensions all the time. So we're a part, and each of us has a unique combination. We're a unique combination of all these dimensions. So that as we have a spiritually healthy immune system, we are like those white blood cells that are just doing their thing, and they're informed by the love intelligence that they have. And we really can't trade one thing for another. So it could be that we do affirmations, much like those antibodies for a healthy immune system. We have affirmations that are personal and powerful and present tense. And it's really personal. It's something that's specific for us, that empowers us. It could be that there's the affirmative prayer, so it's a little dose, much like that inoculation or whatever. And much like that amoeba, it knows to move away from whatever that noxious substance is. So to be spiritually healthy, we get to develop a healthy spiritual immune system. And there's 3 ways to do that. And especially number 2 is to stay focused on what that is. And sometimes we have to be in community like this, and it's so beautiful because even if we were in a monastery, we would be cooking and doing some dishes and planting a garden, and even in that sacred space of solitude, we would be bringing that essence, that empowerment to that community. And so we care about something that's larger than ourselves, so that as we have a healthy immune system, we care about something that's larger than ourselves. So we can bring it a new thought. We can have a spiritual healthy immune system. And the easiest way sometimes is also to get out of the way and to look at what am I fasting from or what am I feasting on. So Dr. Ernest Holmes says in the book Love and Law, people must realize that no matter how infinite the infinite may be, it can only become to them what it can become through them. So this energy can only become to us in more full expression what it becomes through us. So we are that creative expression. And Dr. Ernest Holmes talks about that we must look at ourselves with our own eyes. If we could open up and clean house mentally, clean those little dust in the corners, get our little dustpan out and clean those little corners, clean that up, we can know that there is everything that is ever available to us, and that the infinite doesn't refuse anything. I have a friend who was visiting his grandparents, and he would visit his grandparents. He had a great relationship with his grandparents. And his mother had moved in with the grandparents, and because she wasn't able to sustain herself, and she had not been able to be successful in whatever recovery mode that she needed, and so it just wasn't a good place for him to associate with him. And so he was able to set it up so that he was able to continue on his vacations. He wanted to be with his grandparents, but he was not able to be around his mom at that time, and to just honor her process and honor her progress, and to know that she was being supported by their family. And so what he was able to do was say, I'm going to stay in a hotel. I'll go have a resort, and grandparents, you can come here, and you can be, and let's have fun, and we'll go to dinner, and we'll go on some outings, we'll go to the lake, and this, and then I'll kiss you goodnight. And so he was still able to see his grandparents. and to honor his mom's process. And there may be a time in the future where he can surround his mom and make whatever those amends are, and see that she's totally provided for and cared for. And currently, the grandparents are serving that purpose. So he was able to set himself up for success. So in essence, he was able to get out of the way of whatever that environment was, and to not put himself back in that environment. Although it may not be the healthiest thing, he was able to take his own system, his own healthy immune system, and say, it's not working for me, but here's what is working for me. And to really, in essence, come from a place of power and come from a place of empowerment. So there are 3 ways to fast from negative people, and knowing that wisdom evolves, and that we can see things as they are, and that patience is involved in accepting that. There's a story about a gentleman who had been to Vietnam, and he was at the effect of a grenade, and he became blind, and he lost the use of his right hand. And when he was recovering in Washington, D.C., they had flown him back, and he was recovering. The nurses came to him and they said, "What do you need? What can we do for you?" And he said, "Well, give me a piece of clay." And he created the most wonderful sculptures out of the clay that they gave to him. And he became, this is Michael Naranka, and it's spelled like an orange, like Naranka, N-A-R-A. I'm a creative speller, I better look. That's why they call me D, it's easy to spell. It is. Oh, well. Yep. Naranjo, I think. So he came to the nurses and he said, I'd like some more clay. And he's actually from New Mexico. And he brought his sculptures here, and then he began to have the wax process and with the bronze. And normally the bronze stuff would come out like a patina or like a green, and he had a trademark of having like a black sculptures. And he created the most amazing sculptures. And what he could do is he could use his left hand, and he could see with his left hand. He could create the most amazing sculptures with his left hand. And his wife began to, and he would probably be grumpy sometimes. Would you be grumpy too? Yeah? She would tell him to get back into bed and get out of the right side of the bed. And she began to write the Vatican, because he wanted to go see Michelangelo's David. And the way that he sees is with his left hand. And it took about 2 years of them writing for them to have that trip. And he really wanted to have that experience. And so after about 2 years, he was able to go feel and touch, and they had built special scaffolding for him to be with David. Not just see him, but be with him, be with that. And to bring that back into his work. He was granted that dispensation, and he was able to bring that into his artistry and to bring that into his well-being that then he shared with other people. And he was able to overcome whatever that negative experience was and that negativity that he experienced. And so he's from New Mexico, and he's a great example of seeing clearly. And he was able to have that experience and bring that joy to other people as they bought his sculptures and brought that into their home. And it was unique. He brought his unique talent and his artistry into the greater community. And we all have that capacity to not be negative ourselves. He chose not to be one of those negative people. He chose to focus on whatever that task was at hand. And he chose to get out of the way of whatever that pity-potty would have been about just poor me or being on that other side of the bed. And so he brought his gifts, he brought his talents, and he too was able to have the wisdom to evolve in seeing what that was and that patience that evolves from that acceptance. So I invite us to all do that today, and knowing that we are absolutely in this place of saying yes to what is life-affirming, what is life-giving, and being in that space and grace and passion. And I invite us to turn within for a moment of inner celebration and trusting and knowing that all is well, and that there is the infinite presence and the infinite way as we turn within, and knowing that what we bring is that beautiful artistry, that beautiful expression, that creative expression, and in saying yes to that which is empowering, that which is life-giving and life-affirming. So I know that there is the divine essence and the divine presence being one with the one in this divine power, that there is love flowing, that there is peace, there is joy, knowing that there is joy in the midst of anything, and knowing that no matter what, there is the recognition of the beauty, the recognition of that which is grace-filled and joyful, knowing that peace is ever available, being in this very moment of peace, peacefulness, tranquility, serenity, and that we too bring into focus, into the lens of life, the beauty and the creativity of life, that there is the infinite wisdom and the full acceptance of the divine. For this I am so grateful, as I know it shows up in a healthy spirituality. It shows up in our well-being. It shows up in our healthfulness, in the radiant, vibrant vitality. And as we raise this vibration, knowing that it just can't help but spill over into each and every area of our life. And I'm so grateful for this time together to celebrate and to participate and to be on the court of this life, knowing that it is divine. It is this beautiful pattern which is unfolding. And I release this word into the action of the law lovingly, knowing that it goes forward and that the path is made straight and that it is clear and it is filled with the loving kindness of this world. And so be it, and so I celebrate, and so it is. And I invite you to join us for a couple minutes of silence.